So welcome back to Live God's Truth. I have a very special guest with me for this particular episode. I'm very excited. One of my best friends, the best man in my wedding, one of the best fathers that I know. Brock Glass is here with me this evening. Brock, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great. It's been a good day. I tell you,
Good,
I'm excited to be here.
good. Yeah, I've had a pretty good Thursday too, and tomorrow's Friday, so it always
Amen.
makes Thursday easier. Um,
Yes.
but yeah, I feel like this has been a long time coming. We have for the past couple of years been doing a weekly, Bible study-ish, book study, for a while now, and as often as we can, even though life gets in the way sometimes and everything. I'm sure everybody listening, can relate. But I think we've been on this journey kind of looking at, we read one of the first things we read was a book that you introduced, right? And that was
Yep.
written by, can you remind me of that one?
Dr. Tony Evans,
Dr. Tony
Kingdom
Evans.
Men
Yeah.
Rising.
Kingdom Men. Yeah. Rising. And then we read John Cooper's book, who's the front man of Skillet, if you're familiar with that band. And I think that was the title of that one is escaping me too. My memory is great tonight. Awaken
Awaken
Alive
alive to
to
the
Truth.
truth.
Yeah. Um, and recently we've been studying Revelation and everything. And I think both of us have been wanting to kind of share, now that we've taken all this in, it's our responsibility as Christians probably to share our thoughts on the scriptures and the scriptures themselves and try to point people towards the truth. And that's the point of this podcast. And I'm glad to have you on. So first of all, let's talk about our own experience with earthly fathers. And, we have maybe two different experiences. So I'll let you go first and talk about your dad, Merle, who was kind of like a dad to me for a long time there. And I always consider him like a second dad to me. So,
Yeah. So I was thinking about what I was going to say about my father in this, and the thing that just kept coming up in my mind is my dad was quite literally always there. Like it didn't matter what was going on, what I was doing, whether it was him coaching me in Little League Baseball, whether it was track meet or a cross country meet, it could have been rain or shine. The man was always there. He was always my biggest fan, and it didn't matter. It didn't matter whether I was first place or last place. I mean, he was always cheering me on. I specifically remember one instance where I was running a cross country race in junior high, and it was a really foggy morning, and we had gone kind of down this real steep hill, and we were working our way down through the valley, and almost as though the gods were speaking to me, I could just hear my father screaming from the top of the hill, go get him, Brock, go get him. And, it was just always that constant motivation that he brought to my life. And I mean, he was always, supporting me in whatever I did. We don't always have the same opinion about stuff, but he was always kind of in my corner when push came to shove.
yeah.
Probably still one of my best friends.
Yeah, that's awesome. And, I have very fond memories of your dad through not, church, of course, but also, Sunday Steeler games. And for years and years, we would gather at your place and your dad would host and your mom would always have food for us. And
Yeah.
it was always a great time, and he just had this group of basically kids over at the house, high schoolers and into college too, a little bit there. And he'd just be one of the guys, and
Yeah.
always took good care of us. So, I
Yeah.
always have good thoughts of your dad.
Yeah. And to be honest, I'm pretty sure that he loved those moments more than we even did,
He might
like
have. Yeah.
he just, he took those opportunities to just whatever insight or wisdom he thought he had to share, he would share it with them in those moments. It was good. I think that's what made it, like he was one of the guys, and, he didn't want it to be anything other than that.
Yeah, definitely. So how do you feel your relationship with your father has had kind of an impact on your life? I would say it's probably had a positive impact. What would you say?
Yeah, definitely, definitely. And in a variety of different ways. Like obviously, he was always the kind of guy who um, was, like we do this in this family. Like it was
Hmm.
every Sunday morning. It was we get up and we go to church. Like he was the kind of guy who was sort of setting that example and that tone. And he also kind of taught me by proxy, like different things. He's not the most patient man in the world, right? And he'll tell you that, I'd say that to his face, but through that, I think I learned patience better. I
Hmm.
almost laugh sometimes because of the things that I learned from him that sometimes I think he doesn't really teach himself,
Yeah.
and he's well aware of these things.
Hmm. That's awesome. And yeah, and I would say with my experience was much different, from
Mhm.
yours. And I'll just be honest and say that, I didn't have a relationship with my father really to speak of. He, was abusive to my mother verbally and physically. And, at age 5, my mom was like, okay, we need to get out of this situation. We moved in with my grandparents, and fortunately, I had two awesome grandparents who really helped in my life. And my grandfather was a great man for me to look up to. So even though I didn't have my biological father, I had basically a surrogate father through my grandpa. And
Mhm.
he didn't talk a whole lot, but when he said things, they meant something, and I have very fond memories of my grandfather and what he taught me and everything. Um, so it was different not having like a dad around really, but it was also, I think, a good thing, because I think being around my dad would have been like a toxic relationship, and it might have led me down a different path than I ended up being on. So I wouldn't have met like the friends that I have, or I wouldn't have been
Mhm.
I probably would have met you, but I wouldn't have been as close with you or my other friends that, we all came up through Shenango school district and everything. And
Yeah.
so my life could have looked a lot different. So I'm actually kind of grateful and thankful that things happened the way they did. But I do see my dad's influence on my life, where one area that I've kind of, and even like I'll admit, like through therapy, I've come to this discovery, um, that I one thing I always do is, I want to feel significant to other people. I want to feel
Mhm.
like important to other people, and that might come from not having that supportive father, or that father that I felt kind of wasn't there, and wanting to prove myself, and things like that, and be important to people. Um, and another thing that I found is that it's hard for me to form like new male friendships sometimes, just
Mhm.
because of like I have a really close group of male friends, but beyond that, not really more than that, because I have to
Mhm.
really like trust somebody before I will call them a friend, especially if it's a male. So I've noticed that maybe being a thing that has come from out of that too. Um, but fortunately, I had a very good, strong support system and family and friends that, kept me on the right path and everything.
Yeah.
But I think sometimes, and we're going to talk about it a little bit more here with the research and the statistics and everything. Absent fathers can have a very negative impact on children, and then as they become adults too. And we're going to look at some of that. But do you have any other thoughts before we move forward?
Yeah. No, and I think it'll probably make a good transition into what we're talking about. But I just wanted to see like what were your thoughts on. So obviously we have different dad stories.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel like do you see any of um, your dad in the way that you parent, or do you see the way that you parent shaped by the way that you had a relationship with your father, nonetheless.
Yeah, I mean, I think I don't have a lot of memories of my father other than I did try to reform a relationship with him, and it was, probably about 10 years ago or so. Um,
Mhm.
and I just remember at first things were going well, and I really enjoyed spending time with him and everything. But then it just got to the point where that control started to show itself, and the way that he talked to me, I didn't appreciate, and I kind of had to end that relationship. um
Mhm.
and so I guess I try to do the opposite of that with Sydney. And um I want to make sure that I'm always being supportive of her and encouraging, and when I have to be firm with her, I am. But I try to achieve this balance of like love and limit setting. And just trying to like, my goal was always to like be the best father I could be, because I didn't feel that I really had a great one. um
Sure.
so that really has been a driving force for me, for sure. And what about being a father yourself now? Like, how do you feel about it so far? You've been a father for a little while now.
Yeah, yes. Silas is 7 at this point, which is I don't know how that happened. I really don't know. Um, Pretty sure it
That's
was yesterday
crazy.
he was born. I feel like, coming into things, you don't know what to expect, but I really enjoy the moments that I have with my boys. Like
Hmm.
I was today, just today, I was thinking about this. Um, my boys are they're getting to the point now where I look at them and I'm thinking, I really want to take the wheel and steer a little bit here. Like
Hmm.
they're not babies anymore. They're getting into, like we were talking about earlier, they're getting into t-ball, into baseball, and I'm really looking forward to just savoring those memories with them, and just teaching them little things along the way, even in the silly context of t-ball or baseball, just discipline and working together, and giving your best no matter what it is, whatever
Hmm.
that looks like, and I feel like these are things that as I've grown as a father, I'm starting to realize, like that's the stuff that I want to take care of. You
Yeah.
know, Initially I feel like I worried about all the little, nuances, and I wasn't
Hmm.
so much focused on like, let me just teach them the things that are valuable, and whatever they do in the middle and how they get there, like that's it is what it is. Don't worry about that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, like big picture kind of things, those life
Mhm.
lessons that you want to impart and everything. um and just as an outsider looking in, you're definitely a father that I look up to as a father, and I think
Thank
you're
you.
a great dad. And I'm always impressed to see like just how involved you are, and how many things you guys have going on for your kids. It seems like it's so important to you and Megan that
Mhm.
you really give them the best lives you possibly can, you give them the most opportunities you possibly can. um, so I just want to say that I think that's amazing, and you
Thank
guys
you.
are you
Thank you.
guys are doing a great job, and you're an awesome dad. So um,
Thank you.
yeah, and for me, I love being a dad. It's probably one of my favorite things in the world.
Mhm.
I love being a daughter father, I guess, or a girl dad, whatever you want to call it.
Mhm.
um, and I feel like I have a really strong connection with Sydney, and I always wanted to just be a parent that's always there for her, and to be like to be basically a co-parent with my
Mhm.
wife. I've always felt like the father and the mother should have equal involvement in a child's life. And so it's always been important to me to go to doctor's appointments, be there for
Mhm.
things, show up for things, be involved in all those things, and be a part of the decision making, of course, for and things that come up. um
Mhm.
so I always wanted to play a major role in that. And I just get a lot of joy out of being a dad, and every opportunity I get to spend time with her. And earlier tonight, I was daddy, she's like, it's not my favorite thing to do, but she's like, Daddy, will you play Barbies with me? And I'm like, all right, I'll be
Yeah, I
Ken, let's
will.
go.
Yeah, I will.
So
Yeah, yeah.
whatever I got to
That's
do.
that's fantastic.
Yeah.
And the thing is, you don't know who your kid's going to be when they're just a baby, and as you
Mhm.
start to see those little things and just the stuff that they really enjoy. I find that I enjoy things with them that I never enjoyed as an individual myself. you
Mhm.
know be it as simple as you playing with the Barbies, but they're that is something that she really loves. And so
Mhm.
as a dad, sure, why not? Here we go.
And
Where's the
the
Barbie mobile?
yeah, and the cool thing is she's kind of well balanced, because she'll want to play with Barbies and do girly things and dress up and all that stuff, but like at the same time when we're outside, she's like, can we play basketball, can we play hockey, like can we,
Nice.
and we do those things, and we do sports together and stuff like that. So I get some
Hmm.
of that too. So it's
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
you know
Absolutely.
so it's all good. um but let's dig into some of the research, and I'm going to share my screen here and just look at, and we see this probably firsthand as educators, the effects that can happen on students that maybe have an absent father, or don't have a father present for whatever reason. So let's look at this real quick. Okay, so we have, this is coming from Child and Family Research, .utexas.edu. And it says 5 things you should know about the importance of fathers. I really want to focus on number one, though. Um, and it says involved dads have a direct impact on their children's future. So I'm just going to go ahead and read this. Involved fatherhood is linked to better outcomes on nearly every measure of child well-being, from cognitive development and educational achievement to self-esteem and pro-social behavior. Children who grow up with involved fathers are 39% more likely to earn mostly A's in school, 45% less likely to repeat a grade, 60% less likely to be suspended or expelled from school, twice as likely to go to college and find stable employment after high school, 75% less likely to have a teen birth, and 80% less likely to spend time in jail. Um, so those are high numbers, high percentages, and that show the value of having an involved dad. And um, let's take a look at what an involved dad is. What does that look like? And this kind of, I'll even highlight some of this here, at the top. Father involvement has increased dramatically over the past several decades. The role of fathers in their families has evolved from conceptions of fathers as distant breadwinners to a more holistic recognition that they're equal co-parents. And that's what I was kind of
Hmm.
talking about, about being an equal co-parent. And so I think when you look at these statistics, it's pretty staggering. And an involved dad is basically one that acts as a co-parent, is present, um, not just earning money for the family, but spending real quality time with their kids, being involved being at school meetings, being at appointments, all those things. Um, Brock, do you want to add anything to what you think an involved father looks like, or
Yeah.
anything?
And listen, I think it all stems from the design of God was never that um, children would be raised with just one parent, right? That there are just certain things that mom is good at, and there's certain things that dad is good at, and
Hmm.
when you have both of those things just clicking perfectly, these numbers, I mean, they're astounding. But
Yeah.
at the same time, I think that it makes perfect sense. You know, it makes perfect sense that you would have less issues with discipline. It makes perfect sense that the kid would be more likely to set different goals and to achieve higher, simply because he has both that compassion side from mom, and the goal side from dad, just
Hmm.
working together, supporting them in all manner of ways. And that is not to say that single parents can't work their tail off and get children
Right.
that break the mold.
Hmm.
Let's be clear. You are a marvelous example of
Thank you.
how it doesn't have to be that way.
Hmm.
But
Yep. Very true. I'm
statistically
glad you pointed
speaking,
that out. Yeah.
statistically speaking, you're quite an anomaly,
Right. Right.
um, but there are plenty of instances where you have, um, situations where a kid can thrive, without that, or in spite of that, you could even say,
Hmm.
um, which is something that we have to remember. These are numbers, and they tell a story, but there's also the other side of the story.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think also some kids can be in particular resilient, despite,
Mm,
um, the risk factors that they might be growing up in. And, like I mentioned, my mother was fantastic and made so many sacrifices for me and my sister. And we were around our grandparents, which helped, me to kind of break that mold, I guess, as you said. Um,
mhm,
but yeah, I think when I think about my experience as a school counselor, and I think about the students in my school that struggle the most, like if I'm thinking, I'm thinking right now in particular about a few students in particular, and and they're in situations where there's an absent father, there, or they witnessed their father abuse their mother, their father has been in jail or is currently in
mhm,
jail. This is a common theme that I see as I'm working with these students, and just seeing the effect that it's having on their behavior. They're more likely to get detentions or get in trouble, be involved in fights, you know conduct issues,
mhm.
and struggle academically. So I think that, and I want to say also, like, with this episode we're doing here, we're not undervaluing the role of the mother at all, because
No, no.
moms, or we couldn't do it without moms. Moms are just phenomenal, and we need moms, but
Mhm.
just pointing out, when there's two parents, when there's a mom and a dad involved, it just really increases the chances of positive outcomes for your children. And this data shows that, I think.
Yeah, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So any more thoughts on that before we move to the scriptures?
No, I think we've done a nice job of talking that through, and you know, the scripture ultimately is where we need to go.
Yeah.
And the scripture, it speaks to all of the different situations in life, and it certainly speaks to what we have going on here, with the dads.
Yeah. So we're gonna look at Ephesians 6. Which verses did you have for that, Brock?
For Ephesians 6, I believe we were looking at, uh, let me see. What did I say
I
here?
think you had four, you were highlighting four, but I didn't know if you wanted
Ephesians
to.
6, yeah, verse 4 is the big one that I want to touch on. But
Yeah.
let's go through the first couple of verses so we can get a little bit of context here,
Hmm.
right? So, in Paul's letter to this church, he's sort of concluding things here, talking to families, right? Children, obey your parents in the Lord, for it is right. Honor your father and mother, which is the first commandment with a promise. And that promise is so that it may go well with you and you may enjoy long life on the earth. Okay. And first, verse 4 is where we want to really focus, right? Fathers. Okay. Now he gets real specific here. He's been talking about families as a whole. He's been talking about the kids honoring the father and the mother, but now he zeroes in on fathers, right?
Hmm.
Fathers, do not exasperate your children. Instead, bring them up in training and instruction of the Lord. Okay. And so what we have to see here is, we talked a little bit ago about like the historical father who was just the breadwinner and was distant and things like that, and how that is starting to change. And thank heavens it is, because listen,
Yeah.
the description of a father here is one that is highly involved in what these children are doing. Okay. Now it says, do not exasperate your children, right? Basically, don't be such a rigid disciplinarian that's all they ever see you as, but rather instead bring them up in training and instruction in the Lord. Okay. And what I want to draw everybody's attention to here is the job of the dad is to be the one raising the children. Okay. We have this tendency in our culture to kind of lean real heavy on mom and be like, mom, you gotta be the one, and to be clear, mom does have a role, but very clearly the Bible is telling us here, it's the father's job to take that lead. Okay. He is the one that is to be instructing the kids, training the kids about God. And that's what the family should be completely centered around, right? If the family is centered on God, then the other parts sort of fall into place, right? The extracurriculars, like what we're doing, the sportsmanship stuff, right? But even more so than that, the education side of things. If you have a God-centered life, the education side of things comes, right into line, because you have children who are respectful and, doing as the Bible says, where anything you do your best, and it also it plays a role in just the way that the kid is, they have a disposition where they're respectful to authorities and different things like that. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. And I also thought of when you mentioned don't exasperate your children, I thought about and it's not just fathers that do this, it can be mothers too, but that parent who kind of is always like nitpicking their kid, and always like pointing out their flaws and like trying to live vicariously through their child, basically. And that creates like a level of exasperation, and the child probably feels so much pressure and stress to like, be perfect,
Right.
that can cause problems within itself too,
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of those things where, as a parent, we start from a good place. I don't think parents come from a place of, oh, I really want to harass my kid about this, but it's
right.
You see a kid who's maybe not doing things quite right, or maybe they're struggling with something, and you, through your history, your wisdom, you see a better way. But sometimes you just kind of got to let them work through it,
Yeah.
and that's hard.
Mm-hmm.
I'm speaking from personal experience. Listen, I'm a perfectionist. Okay. I like things to be the way that they're supposed to be.
Yeah.
And so when I see, my kid, picking up his fork, and instead of, going straight into the mouth, they kind of go on the cheek a little bit, I want to steer the hand where it belongs, but that's not letting him learn how to do it. Like that's
Yeah.
not letting him be him. And it becomes a whole ordeal, like you said, where the kid starts to feel like, well, no matter what I do, it's not the right way. It's not how I'm supposed to do it. So, what if I mess this up? And that's not the goal. It's to instruct them. It's to train them and teach them and let them figure it out.
Yeah. And I think I can be guilty of this sometimes too, where I can be kind of like pointing out to Sydney if she's doing something wrong. And Brittany will let me know. She's like, okay, you're being a little too hard on her. You need to back off a little bit. And she keeps me in line and that helps. And I'm like, okay, I need to just step back a little bit. So, yeah.
I tell you what, nothing gives you a better opportunity at that than reading a child's writing, and as Sawyer he's learning to do his letters, but as Silas has really started to do some writing this year, he's written a couple of little books. I mean, they're fantastic, and I love them. You know, but then he'll like hand it to me, and he'll be like, "Daddy, can you help me like edit some of this?"
Mm-hmm.
Which is, first of all,
First,
the
that
fact that you
he's
want me to
saying
edit
that.
it, is unbelievable. But
Yeah.
like I don't want I don't want him to feel bad about anything that he has written, because I point out, like there should probably be a comma splice here. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like it's just silly things like that, like I like, I'm thinking I want to say that, but at the same time, that's not the important part. The important part is let me work with you where you are, and we'll worry about that, the finer details later.
Yep, for sure. Okay, so do not exasperate your children. Do you want to move on to Deuteronomy?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. And so this one, we're going to be looking at verses, what did I say, 6-9. So Deuteronomy 6-9. Okay. And this ties exactly to what we were just talking about. These commandments that I give you today are to be in your hearts. Okay. So God is saying to the fathers, right? What he has just told you, as a father, these are the things that you should have on your heart. Okay. But then it takes it to the next level. Impress them on your children. Okay. And when you look at that, you want to think, well, okay, well, this is Jesus Sunday school talk. And so we'll just, after church, what'd you learn at church today? Okay, good. Now what are we going to, let's go eat lunch. And then you forget about it. But it's so much more than that, right? He says, talk about them when you sit at home, and when you walk along the road, when you lie down, and when you get up. Tie them as symbols on your hands, bind them on your foreheads, write them on the door frames of your house and on your gates, right? And this is just, I mean, it's such a beautiful thought that every part of your day is an opportunity for you as a father, for me as a father, to really show my boys the love of Jesus, right? Every single moment. It's not like a one and done thing, but rather it's in the mundane task. It's how can I help you with where you're at? How can we use this moment to learn about something else? About a year and a half ago, something like that, Megan had said, "Hey, what? I feel like we should go help out with this thing." They have this they call it the backpack program, and basically what they do is they have parents show up one night a month, and pack bags with non-perishable food to give to the kids at the school who have food insecurity over the weekend. Okay, so it's this program, and I said to her, "Okay, let's do this, but I would love to bring Silas with us, just as an opportunity for him to see
that. Yeah.
Hey, look, this is a really neat opportunity, just in the middle of your week, in the middle of your day, where you can take a couple minutes and really do something that's going to help a bunch of people, and not just people, but rather the kids that you're sitting in school with, we use those opportunities to really just firm up the faith in Jesus, right? Because listen, if I am depending on the world to teach my kids right from wrong, if I'm depending on the world to teach my kids the morality of the Bible and of Jesus, they're going to have some real conflicts here. But if I do like Ephesians says, if I do like Deuteronomy here says, and I take the lead as the dad, and I say, you know what, these are my boys. I want them to know what I know about Jesus, right? And and listen, my father, it was a fantastic example of this, right? He would tell me sometimes, he just when you don't know, you just admit you don't know. It's not like fathers, like sometimes I feel like they worry about trying to be perfect or they
Mm-hmm.
worry about trying to be flawless and know
Have all the
everything.
answers. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's not like that at all.
Mm-hmm.
It's being there in the simple parts of the day. It's talking with them when you sit with them at home. Every
Yeah.
father can do that, right? Talk to the kid, right? Every father can work with them when they walk along the road, when you're outside playing. It's an opportunity to be a
Mm-hmm.
father, right? When you are lying down at bedtime, this is an opportunity to talk about, what were the good things that you did during the day. um,
Mm-hmm.
another thing, and this is 100% my wife. We sat down at dinner the one night, and she said, "You know what we should start doing?" I said, "What?" And she said, "We should talk about our three H's." And I said, "What do you mean by that?" She said, "During the day, we're all apart. When we come around the table, let's take a minute and let's talk about what was hard during your day.
Mm-hmm.
What was something that made you happy during your day? What was something that your heavenly Father provided you during the day?" And
Mm-hmm.
so this is a tradition that we've started at my house. And sometimes, like, sorry, he's still a little young, so he doesn't quite get you
Yeah.
know things, but he's starting to think about, like, what part of my day was something good that God did for me,
Mm-hmm.
and that is, I mean, it's incredible to hear 4-year-old Sawyer or 7-year-old Silas talk about, God did this really nice thing for me today, and
Yeah.
so it's we're not doing anything extraordinary. I'm not going above and beyond anything here. All I'm doing is sitting down with my kids at dinner and having a conversation,
Yeah.
exactly like Deuteronomy 6 is talking about here.
Yeah, and I think that's extremely important. I think, some of the things you mentioned, kind of resonated with me because, I like the idea of the three H's. I mean, one thing that we do sometimes at dinner and we're not consistent enough is talking about, what was hard for you today and what made you happy today. But yeah, I think including like what were you provided, I like that. Um, and I can think of an example just today where I went into Sydney's room because I heard her saying, "Daddy, do you ever get the feeling like somebody's watching you?" And so I went
Mhm.
in and I was talking to her about it. And I'm like, "Well, actually, Sid, God is always watching you and
Mm.
and watching what you're doing and everything like that." And she kind of rolled her eyes and she was like, "No, I just mean like somebody's watching you because like my shoes moved and I didn't move them." And I'm like, "I'm trying here, Sydney."
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yep.
I think when there's those opportunities to inject God into her thinking and in her life and
Mhm.
I think we are doing that, but I think there could be more consistency with it, and something that to work on for sure. Mhm.
Yeah, and here's the thing, for you, for me, for anybody that's listening, it's just about being deliberate, right? We as parents are the single greatest influence on our kids' lives, right?
Mhm.
And that can be like a kind of like a burden sometimes, but like if we are intentional about just taking small moments in the day and impressing on them, the value of a relationship with God, right? The reason that we pray at the end of the day, the reason that we do this, that, or the other thing. I really believe that it has a huge impact on just the overall development and well-being as the kids as individuals, but also in their growth, in their faith in Jesus.
Hmm. Absolutely. So, any dads that are out there listening, we play a vital role. We need to, if we're not stepping up, we need to step up. There's always improvements we can make too. Just be involved in your child's life, be a positive role model and be there for them, in all ways. And like you said, Brock, it is kind of on us to bring our kids up in the right way because, we are not in control of what they're going to be exposed to or what they're even going to learn at school. And this kind of ties into what I talked about last week with the Florida Parental Rights and Education Bill. and there being some backlash to that. And I think if you really take a look and read that bill, it's just saying, it's not appropriate to teach kids that are in kindergarten or third grade about sexual orientation or about gender identity, because it might not be age appropriate. And there's this huge backlash going on in Florida about it. So that's just one example of, we are not in full control of what they're going to be exposed to and what they're going to learn. So we have to take it upon ourselves to steer the ship and lead them in the right direction, and take an active role in that. So, yeah, thank you so much for your perspective on that and everything. So,
yeah, absolutely. It has been, it's been a wild journey as a parent, as a dad. And, I've got a lot to learn along the way. So I appreciate, just having the opportunity to come on and kind of tell a little bit of the story,
Yeah. And thank you again so much. And, I think we all can always do better, and we can always, none of us have any of this mastered. We're learning it as we go in life. But thanks once again. I really enjoyed having this conversation with you. Keep being an awesome dad. And
you too, my friend.
I'm going to try my best over here too. So.
All right.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you.
Anything you want to plug or say, or you on social media at all? I know you're not a big fan of social media, but I think you're on Instagram now, right?
I am.
People to know that you're on Instagram.
I am on the Instagram, and I've got some plans for some inspirational messages I'm going to be putting out on there. So if you happen to find me on there, be on the lookout. Things will be coming up soon. Once I get my ducks in a row here.
Awesome. And yeah, make sure to stay tuned to Live God's Truth. Subscribe to the channel. That way you don't have to go through Facebook or anything else. You just know when the videos pop up, and there you go. But stay tuned, and I'll be back again soon. Thanks for checking it out, everybody.